Welcome everyone, and thanks to the town of Basalt for hosting us today in this meeting, and thanks to the public for being here. One of the things I did want to just start out the meeting with is to let everyone know in Basalt and the surrounding areas that we will be over here a lot in the coming months because there's a big land use file that is in the unincorporated part of Eagle County. It's not on the agenda today because that's a quasi-judicial process, but there will be a lot of planning commission hearings and a lot of board of county commissioner hearings. So if anybody has something on their mind to say about that development proposal, we want to hear it and we look forward to hearing it, but we aren't talking about it today. So that's our kickoff. I'm Kathy Chandler-Henry. I'm from Eagle. I'm a lifelong resident of Eagle. Spent a lot of time over here in Basalt as a kid in 4-H projects and school sports events. Been a county commissioner since July of 2013 and just ran for election this last November. Thanks for being here.
Yes, and I'm Jackie Whitsitt, and I have known Kathy Chandler-Henry just about longer than anyone in this room, actually. She was my first professor at Colorado Mountain College in American government, of all things. I've been involved in local politics for a very long time in transportation and open space issues and nonprofits, Latino issues, and so this is just kind of the culmination of all of that, and we are really, really happy to have Eagle County sitting in the room with us at the same table, smiling at each other.
Hi, I'm Jill Ryan, and I'm in my first term on the board. This is going into my third year. I live in Edwards, and wanted to really compliment the town on your redevelopment efforts. The place really looks great.
Hi, I'm Bertie Brower. I'm new on council in April, a resident here 18 years, and I'm currently vice president of the Regional Library Board.
Rob Levitt, first term on council, husband and father of 2 girls at Basalt schools, skier, builder.
Hi, I'm Gary Tenenbaum. This is my second stint on council. I took a little break. Pretty new. Been back on council in April. I work for Pickett County Open Space and Trails. And, obviously, open space and trails are a huge focus for me. But other than that, I do have a wife and a kid, Basalt schools, and I've been here for 13, 14 years now.
Hi, I'm Jeannie McQueenie, and I just shy of 1 month as a county commissioner. Just about 1 month. 23 years living here in Eagle County. I live right now in the town of Eagle. I raised my kids here. My son is still living at home, sort of-ish, working on the mountain and being a lifty, living the dream. And my daughter graduated through our system, and I come with a background in education, being a teacher and director of nonprofit, and spent some time on the Eagle County School Board.
I'm Herschel Ross. I'm in the middle of my term as the town councilman. I'm a dentist here in Basalt, a former town councilman for Snowmass Village, and a former county commissioner for Pitkin County.
And this is Mike Scanlon, and Mike is the map guy here and wants to just kind of give us a little geographic background.
Thank you, Mayor. The one thing that I'm always preaching to town staff is that when you look at this map, these are all the districts. Eagle, Pitkin County. So not only are we split by counties, we are also split up in a number of different districts that deliver services to the community. And that when someone calls, we're often directing them to where they can get help or services that they need, sometimes related to these services, sometimes related to services specific to Eagle or Pitkin County. But the idea is that anyone who calls is a member of the community. And whether they're in Basalt Incorporated or Eagle County unincorporated, when they call 911, they really don't care who comes. They care about that someone comes. And so one of the things that I think we pride ourselves on in the area is that we're all here to serve the community And whether that's called a patron, whether it's called a resident, whether it's called a taxpayer, really doesn't matter to us. That there are a community of people that we serve. So when you sort of look at the area that we're talking about, you'll find that we have just this great intersection of all kinds of services, areas, districts, school districts, Aspen Valley Hospital. So there's this mishmash of services that get delivered to a really small area. So the idea, and one of the things that I talk about to our town council, is understanding that we serve a community, that they might be just outside of our boundaries, but they certainly use our services, they certainly shop in our businesses, and some of them have family members that live inside Incorporated, but they live outside in an unincorporated area. So sort of, we serve a community, and however you describe them, or however you depict them, there are people that we serve.
And I think that I personally want to say that we are really celebrating the fact that we are all sitting here at the same table, because just like any family, we've had over the many, many years, and I've been around probably 16 on and off, we've had some like less desirable uncles and nephews and people at the table than the people who sit here now, you know, and I can say that for both sides, quite honestly, but we are super happy that we have this to celebrate. And even though we've had some family issues over the many past years, I have to say that we've come a long way in delivering services to the public that they needed and cared about, regardless of differences that we might have had on land use or something else. And just a couple that I wanted to name because they're near and dear to my heart is the fact that we actually agreed on an IGA that we all signed. And it was, you know, before the women were here even. So that was a huge thing that we accomplished together. And also I have to say that Eagle County has always been at the RAFTA table forever since we became RAFTA. And that is that's a huge issue. And I think that eventually we may actually hook our transit agencies together, I hope so, to make it, once again, better for the greater community. And probably a really big one for me is trails. And we have funding that comes out of the Eagle County pod, the transportation pod that helps us fund trails here. The Mid-Valley Trails Group is the name of it. And so we've worked on that for many, many years together. And so I'm super happy about that. And I'm sure that the county representatives probably have some things that they want to share as well. I mean, those are my babies, so. Although you guys have some of you are really new.
Well, when we started thinking about what have we done before the council's a success, we came up with this short list here up on the left-hand side. And it was sort of shocking, and I think just the partnerships, Pitkin County especially with Eagle County, and then Basalt as a town partner over here in the Mid-Valley. It's like Mike Scanlon said, people don't care where the jurisdictional boundaries are, and so being able to do that as elected officials has been really great in the areas of open space and sheriff's coverage, human services. There's a lot of cross-pollination and coordination of the town and the two counties. Those are some of the ones I think of. One of them that's coming up is economic vitality. There's mirroring efforts going on in the Roaring Fork Valley and the Eagle River Valley of looking at the regional economic engine, the up valley, down valley, and where do you house people, how do you transport people, and how can they get to work, and how can we develop those jobs. So being able to learn from your experiences and do some of that cross-pollination is great.
We love to cross-pollinate.
We do.
Others?
Well, I'm really quite new, except that I have been on the Regional Early Childhood Council. That's Garfield, Lake, Pitkin, and Eagle counties. And we've been working on early childhood as a four-county region for 19 years together. And so I'm really excited at some of the efforts that are going on right now and grants that are being awarded, and the fact that the state is paying some attention to early childhood. And again, it's very much, you live in one place, you might work in another, and you have childcare in another, and we really do need to work regionally in order to serve the constituents. So, and then with the trails, one of the things that I think is so amazing is if we can finish the couple sections of trails, we'll have 91 miles that connect Summit County to Aspen. I mean, it's just an amazing feat if we could finish a few miles. So, it's just
All we need is $18 million.
it's just, you know,
Which is
That's
not
a
a
little
lot.
all it
Yeah.
takes is time and money.
That's right, exactly.
Anybody else?
You know, I'll make a couple comments. I think one of the partnerships that I'm most proud of is really Eagle County, Town of Basalt, and Pitkin County in the open space purchases that we've made in the past several years. I mean, it is really some of the most beautiful agricultural land with access to hiking trails, and just really proud that, you know, we've all sort of come together to pool our resources and preserve some really nice open space. I wanted to mention, and this is coming up I think later on the agenda, but that Eagle County just funded the Valley Settlement Project. If you're not familiar with the Valley Settlement Project, it's an organization that serves folks that tend to be new immigrants, new to the community, Spanish speaking, really helps them integrate into the community, and particularly provides early childhood education for their kids. It's a population that a lot of times is hard to reach, invisible, doesn't have access to early education and learning. And they were operating in Garfield County and said, you know, county, if you helped us with some startup money, we could locate our services in Basalt. So they're getting ready to start that. And then just another area I'm really looking forward to talking about today is affordable housing, because I think we have some opportunities over here for some partnerships in that area as well.
She took mine. Affordable,
You
I mean,
probably have something else to say.
well, the affordable housing thing is a really critical component, because as we've seen, it is partnerships that are going to truly make affordable housing happen on a scale that's large enough to really make a difference. And you know, now, you know, the first time I was on Basalt Town Council, the relationship between Eagle County and, I mean, Jackie calls it a family. I didn't really call it that, but you know, it wasn't the same. You don't feel as comfortable reaching out to the other side. And since that really started in 2008, in 2015, I feel a complete difference. I feel very much that, you know, especially that county and town staff to be able to be connected, to be able to do that, and to be able to do all that and ask and just talk and make things happen on a much faster time scale. And that's why I'm hoping really hard that we work on an affordable housing program together, but also, you know, really looking at the land use of this area that we're talking about over here is going to be critically important to how this area does for schools. Because the school districts, especially the Basalt School District, which is in Eagle County, is going to be, you know, the amount of growth that is projected in these areas is going to be very difficult to, you know, to sustain on our current amount of funding and the current facilities that we have. And so, you know, land use is going to be critically important to how our schools function. And, you know, right now, Rob and I have been really, you know, since we have kids in the school district, are really critically like watching how that's going to play out over time, because, you know, once you need a new facility, money that could be going to teacher salaries and programs and stuff all of a sudden have to be directed to a facility. And, you know, that doesn't necessarily always mean you have better facilities or newer facilities, but you don't necessarily have better services. So that's one thing I can't wait to work with you guys on.
And kind of to go back to the whole regional thing, one of the things I think that would be really interesting for us to do is to take a look at the IGA again, and maybe hone in a little bit on like the services side of things, and obviously the land use communities. I would like to see us have more than an IGA. I know it's probably unheard of place to start, but I mean, I think of us working more towards, well, I know we can't legally do regional governance, but something that looks a little bit more like a RAFTA, or where we actually get together on a regular basis, not just like out of the blue, let's have, hamburgers together, something more committed than that. And so, I mean, I just would like to know what other folks think about that, if that's been something you've talked about, or...
We did talk about it yesterday, actually. We pulled out the IGA and read through it, and it called out a couple of reports that were supposed to have been done within a year of the IGA. I think everything dropped off the face of the map after 2008, and that some of that wasn't followed up on. So I think it's a great opportunity to pull that out again, figure out which pieces work, which ones we need to revise if necessary, and add to it.
Well, we had a recession, we kind of
Right.
forgot everything else
Right.
for a while,
But we were busy.
But I mean, I would just like to hear everybody's take on if we were to work together more closely. I mean, we all are booked with meetings, but what would be some kind of a reasonable time frame where we could get together and work on these issues and maybe give our staff some homework and then come back and regroup again? Like, what are you thinking?
It sounds almost like we need some sort of strategic plan with maybe just a few priorities that we can sit around the table, sort of put a time frame to, and then, like you said, delegate to staff and have some regular check-ins about.
That's a great idea, because it doesn't have to be a strategic plan, like, in depth, because we can't really do
it could
that.
be really simple with a few priorities, time frames, and next steps.
Great. And Gary, I just want to thank you for all your work on open space in Eagle County, serving on the Open Space Advisory Council, and that's a great connection, even though you're no longer in that.
Well, and that, to me, that's a piece of the strategic plan. And, we've been kind of organic, like as the projects come in and stuff like that. But, having those two programs work together is part of a strategic plan for this area, because, there's other pieces out there. And, how do we want, the Mid-Valley area is one of the potential areas of agriculture that we can maintain in this area. And it goes to water, keeping the water in this area on those properties, and that glacier open space. We have leasees coming in, and we got potential projects or potential operations that we haven't seen, like vegetable production and all this other stuff that might go on open space, that not just ranching anymore. And so, as part of the strategic planning, I'd love to incorporate how we do our built environment and our unbuilt environment, because really, truly, if you looked at that map, you see Pitkin, you see Eagle, and you see the town of Basalt, and it's this Mid-Valley area, and there's a lot of opportunity. And you have, I think right now, 3 partners that all have open space programs and all have open space funding. And basically, if we coordinate and do a strategic plan on all of that, I think we can spend our funds more efficiently.
I think that's great. Do you think like monthly is too much, or what's
Probably.
like quarterly? I mean, I just think in terms of when you're actually trying to put together even a sketchy strategic plan, if you only meet 4 times a year, it'll be we'll all be gone, we won't be in office anymore when we actually see it happen. But I don't want to push it too hard, because I know it's difficult to get over here for RAFTA and all the commitments that you have.
Maybe we could have an initial longer meeting that's facilitated, and I know, Mike, you do a good job of that, and I also know you're good with strategic planning, to sort of pick our priorities and identify staff and next steps, and then plan to meet whatever quarterly, or getting reports from our staff, checking in with each other.
What do you think, Mike? Do you think like kind of the 2 staffs get together, help us put an agenda together on something? I agree that it needs to be really simple and just a few key items to talk about, but pretty soon, and then maybe go longer to have a follow-up.
Kind of catch your momentum that you have now. So you'll have a new county manager that comes on board at some point. And that's a great way, one, to introduce the county manager to this side of the valley, and then to have a meeting at the same time. So as soon as that appointment's made,
When is that?
March 9th.
Okay. So that's a month.
Right.
Okay.
right. And then, and I think it's like number 3, and I think Kathy has it, which is sort of what Jill said, which is pick those 2 or 3 things that are strategic goals that you have. And what's funny is if you look at Eagle County strategic priorities and you look at the titles, and you went up and you looked at Basalt strategic goals for 2015, you'd find that there's one case it's the same words, and then almost every other case it's the same spirit in terms of what we would like to accomplish. The one thing that I would challenge, whatever this becomes, and Herschel will probably parrot me here in a second, is giving the work back to the community. That you always allow the community to have some part of the work, because it is too much work for the 7 council members in Basalt and the 3 commissioners in Eagle to try to take on their own. And the quicker you started thinking about what is it that the community could work on that we believe is important, the better your chance for success. Because they've been engaged in whatever that discussion is, and in fact, you let them lead some of it. But leading them in a way that makes it so that, one, they understand that government, local government, cares about what their concerns are and issues are, because we might have missed it. I mean, there could be something that is an issue that's not on any of these. And to make sure that we have the right issues identified and that we include them in the discussion, because a community will carry you a long way.
Well, still, kind of going down that road of momentum, the new person is going to be March 9th. Is there anything that our staffs could work on and maybe run by us that we could just do away from each other, just long distance, to sort of get this moving a little bit so that when whoever it is on board, we can take off and run?
Okay, well, maybe it's a good idea to take a quick look at those strategic goals, and people have mentioned digging in more to open space and affordable housing. That's on both the SALT strategic goals and on the counties. Jeannie and Jill and I will be spending some time looking at those and revising them a little bit. Those are from last year. We expect most of them to be ongoing. I don't expect them to change a lot. Like Mike said, they're very forward focused in the same around the same issues. But does anyone see anything up there that's missing as far as joint action or something else that we might want to put in? If
Everybody who can read everything up there, raise your
Yeah.
hand. I'll read the titles for folks in the audience who may not be
That
able
would
to
be
see it
great.
sideways. Basalts are fiscally responsible and responsive, caring and safe place, excellence in government, economic vitality, and planning resiliency. For Eagle County, we have quality services, which is like excellence in government, I believe, social investment, which is again similar, economic vitality, exactly the same, sustainable communities, which I believe is your planning resiliency, and then we have environmental stewardship around water, land, open space issues. Perfect. Comments, do we want to pull out a couple of other?
You have a finger up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before I got on council, I served on the planning commission here as the chairman of it for 7 years in total. And I guess the thing that's on my mind is how do we promote smart growth that doesn't result in suburban sprawl in the valley? It's probably a key thing on my mind.
And that's a question that's just going to be out there for a while, I think. And besides, I think when you say smart growth, it means different things to different people. So
I think using well-established principles of clustering, open space, communication, ease of transportation, all of those, focus, those are the key words that come to my mind when I think of how do we contrast that with suburban sprawl.
And I think that's definitely something that we need to work on together. I mean, I think in the past we've worked more closely until recently with Pitkin because we just have, you know, they're right there on our border. But I think that is one thing that we could do better, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. It's just a matter of, to me, it's a so far away thing.
Right.
It really is. It's like you're not just going to like run over, you know, like I see people from the Pitkin County government, like right at my gym where I work out, and I'm not going to see you there. You know, that's not going to happen. So we just need to make a greater effort while we have the great teams that we have in place, I think, because I do think that it's not something you can tell somebody. We have to come to agreement, and we have to be, as Mike said, driven from the community upwards of what is it y'all think this should look like, too.
And Bernie, maybe some of that could happen through looking at this IGA again and incorporate some smart growth principles in there. It seemed like that was the direction it was going, so maybe we can update that a bit.
Jeannie and Herschel.
Your turn. Okay. I don't know if it makes sense, but it seems to me that we could individually spend some time between now and sometime in late March when our county manager is available, looking at the goals of both organizations, and maybe come together for a joint meeting with some key staff, you know, on the areas that we see some alignment, and then with the staff and some discussion about some priorities, we could probably set a timeline more efficiently or effectively as to which community members would you involve? Is there already a group meeting on this? It's going to depend on the priorities, as opposed to saying, oh, we're going to meet quarterly. Well, it might not align with, you know, stuff that's already happening. So to capitalize on groups that are already meeting, but I think if we came together with a few, truly, I'd take that as homework. Take that as some homework between now and towards the end of March kind of thing, and get together with our new manager and some key staff. We might be able to say, these are our priorities, and then each one would have its own timeline of when we would meet again, or what we could expect from community and staff. Good idea. Now it's your turn.
Well, I was just impressed with how aligned our priorities and our goals are. There is a lot of momentum. We want to do the same thing. It's just how many of them, by working together, can we do better and more efficiently and like that. Also, I was extremely impressed with the things we already have going that I wasn't even aware of between Eagle and Basalt. But I agree. If we get the staffs to lay out a framework, and if we give them just a very few priorities for us to look at, and what each of us are already doing. For example, we have an affordable housing project going right now that's on the drawing boards with Pitkin County. I don't think we've ever done as much jointly with them. Also, an aspect of, you said I was going to parrot you, I know you did, I heard that, of what Mike said is, a lot of the momentum we have in the town, a lot of what we've been able to accomplish these last couple of years has to do with the very active involvement of these town committees. And it was interesting when Mike said by the time we get to do some of these things, we'll be out of office. But it's the staff, but also the citizen committees who feel very empowered now because we have involved them with our planning process, with our parks, with our open space, with all of that are there to kind of enculturate whoever is going to be sitting in these chairs in a few years, and to keep the momentum going. Also personally, I feel that by enabling and giving work to our committees, we are training people to be in these chairs. And I'm sure you guys have some active citizen committees also, but ours, man, it's like a runaway horse. You got to be careful. You just stay on the wagon with them, because they've got the bit in their teeth, and it's what's allowed us to do what we have. I don't know how much you've heard about our town planning process and our downtown advisory committee, but golly, their work has been sensational.
It's a great process.
It is. It has been. It surprised the heck out of me when almost 400 people come into our little storefront that we rented, and drew on the maps about what they'd like to see in the town. I was astounded. And the degree of participation was wonderful.
Ralph?
Somehow somehow Town of Basalt overlooked environmental stewardship and our priorities, and seeing the agenda with the green team coming here in an hour, I think we need to keep that on our radar, and I'm sure what they discuss is probably going to tie in with what you guys are interested in as well.
And there is another thing on our talking list here that we talk about but don't do anything about, and that is the new immigrant population. And I think that you are maybe focusing on it more so than we are. I mean, we focus on it, but what is how do we do this? Because here we are, this huge room, without really representation of what our community looks like, and maybe you have the same problem where you are, but I would love to hear if you have ideas of outreach and like the citizen committees even, like our downtown committee at not anything but white.
I would say we have not been successful at that. We at least know that, the same as you, we're aware of that. We know that we try various techniques, more or less successful. I think, Jeannie, you've had some success in that, and we're hoping the Valley Settlement Project is going to teach us some techniques, and hopefully will be transferable over to the Eagle River Valley side of the county. But I don't know of any shining success stories to share with you.
Well, and one of the things that was so appealing about Valley Settlement is their methods. They actually go to the neighborhoods and go to people's homes and sit down with them at their kitchen table, and they do this formative research where they, ask them questions and really get to know them and get to know their needs. And so their services are very culturally competent, and we were hoping that could be the model to start some inroads. I mean, they've got a civic engagement component. They start to get parents to come in and work within the schools. And it's really true that it's very important to have all the community voices participating on our committees and our commissions. And absence those voices, then we're not going to be able to plan with their needs in mind. So we don't really have anything that's similar in the Eagle River Valley. I think we could. I think it's probably able to be replicated, but we're putting a lot of our eggs in this basket over here to see how it works. They're sponsored by the Manus Fund, and I believe that it's a project model out of Chicago. So it's got some research behind it.
We're excited about they do get the parent volunteers in the schools, and then the kids who are non-English speakers have someone at school who can talk to them, they can talk to the other parents, and it creates this leadership model that seems to be very effective in then moving out into the community. So we did fund that at a pretty hefty level for this year to try and get a start in the Eagle County Valley, or part of this valley.
Exactly. But I look around and we've got second generation people here. I mean, it's not like there's really a language barrier. We have bankers and every kind of person. Like, why aren't they at the table? Gary, did you?
Well, I mean, one of the things that, a lot of these programs like Valley Settlement Product, the Cradle to Career Initiative, in early childhood, one of the biggest things is early childhood care is trying to find ways to incorporate. I mean, it's an income issue sometimes, and to get childhood care and appropriate care. The kindergarten thing is a huge thing, getting kids prepared for kindergarten, because that's a way to integrate the lower income people into our community, into the schools and everything else. And I think it'll pay dividends in the future if they're ready for kindergarten. They have success in school, you have the second generation people here. You will potentially get that. I find it extremely difficult to reach out to the Latino community in environmental education, and but what we are noticing is there are certain things you can do for open space and trails. The Rio Grande is a great example of, if you find ways to connect those lower income communities to trails, to open spaces, they will use it, and then trying to engage them more on what would they like to see. Because, the people that talk always say, yeah, I want more mountain bike trails. But is that what they want to see? Or they want to see more picnic areas or parks or whatever? Just need to find better ways together to do that and try to connect.
Did you have something, Jean?
Well, it gets kind of in the weeds because it's a specific project, but we are in Eagle County supported by a state program called Family Leadership Training Institute, and this is the 3rd year we're doing it, and it's a 20-week class, 10 weeks on leadership and public speaking, and 10 weeks on civics. And so each person comes with a passion to do a community service project, and the most interesting thing about the class is that it's required to reflect the demographics of the community. And so instantaneously, through a lot of hard work, we have 20 people that come together who are representative of the community. And so we've finished 2 classes so far. They go down and visit the Capitol. They know how to engage their representatives. It's absolutely amazing. But they now sit on a number of boards. One of them was going to be on the school board, having come through the class. And I think it's about how you teach people the skills to be a leader, and they have a passion, and they find a way to do that. Someone joined the Wetward board, someone joined, I think we had 5 people join the community coalition. So we are getting better representation by the Latino community because of those 2 classes that have been done. And so it's funded out of this, it's partly funded out of the state, and then the rest is local match. But it's something you should maybe look into. But again, I can give you more details. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's one of my pet projects. I like it a lot. Not funded by the county. This is separate. Fun.
Also, I just wanted to say, I know I can see barely back there, we have Pickens County Commissioner George Newman in the room. I'd like to recognize George and ask, we have a chair up here, George, come on up. I'm just going to say, come on up right here. Come. Please.
Put me on the spot?
Yes. Well, I just wanted you to jump in if you had things that we just don't have that many more talking points left, but I just wondered if you had any input on the subjects that we've been talking about.
Well, coincidentally, we had a great meeting today with your staff with an update for social services, and talking about the success and the challenges when you talk about early childhood education and addressing those who are in need the most in terms of child care. But we have a great partnership with Eagle County and Garfield County addressing some of these social issues that we're all facing. So that's big, and certainly as you mentioned, Jill and Gary and Jackie, the partnership that we've developed with our open space is, that's a model for the state, and it's a model that's supported and recognized by the funds that we've gotten from GOCO over the years, who specifically really looks for partnerships such as ours, where we're crossing county lines and municipalities. So I want to just thank you and acknowledge Eagle County and Basalt for partnering with all these great trails and opportunities that we've put together.
And speaking of better understanding of people who are not exactly like us, I'm going to let Mike talk about this a little bit, but in the last year or so, we hosted a couple that came from Thailand. And it's an ICMA fellow program. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we've done this. And I think that Pickens County also had hosted a couple of people. But I wanted to just let Mike talk a little bit more about that, because he's been deeply involved with ICMA for many years, and he sort of brought this to us, which it ended up being super fun and really eye-opening about how different countries see democracy and see us, and to get a little bit of eye-opening information about how they work. So
ICMA, International City County Management Association, most of the managers, county managers, town managers will be members of it. It's been around for over 100 years now. And one of the programs that they have through the U.S. State Department, and this year I want to say they're looking for 16 communities both in May and October to host, is, and it's Vietnam, Thailand, Brunei, and I can't remember, Malaysia, and it's a lot of the Far East countries. And I want to say that last year, I think it was Pitkin County did East Timor, so they had 2 international fellows. So in 2013, we hosted Thailand, Anna and Oratai. Oratai is the head of democratization of local government in Thailand. So if you want to have a hard job, bringing democracy to local governments in Thailand would seem to be a hard job. John Peacock, since he helped us with the Thailand exchange, he was the person we selected to go to Thailand.
And John is the Pitkin
County manager. And so John gets off the plane and is interviewed by 30 reporters at the Thai Parliament with the Speaker of the Thai Parliament and him talking for 2 hours and answering questions. So it's a great experience for the communities in terms of the caliber of the fellows that come. And then it's great for the staffs in that there are no costs to the local government other than when you're hosting them, but the U.S. State Department pays for them. And conversely, when John went to Thailand, that was paid by the U.S. State Department. So there's only a small group of communities that could get selected. We've been selected twice in a row, and my guess is there's a really high probability that we can do it a third time, in part because we've been able to give them really valuable experiences, and then to keep in contact with those fellows that have served here, as well as when we went to their countries. So we would love to have Eagle County. We sort of shared it in terms of Town of Snowmass Village, Pitkin County, and Basalt sort of serving as a joint host, but to include Eagle in it in either May or October, where we would have another set of international fellows visiting. So they would spend 2 or 3 days with your communities. They come to your commission meetings. They love to engage and find out sort of how you do things compared to how they do things. But it's a great learning experience for the staffs of the community, the elected officials, as well as the individual fellows that come to our country.
I hope you mentioned this when you were interviewing the managers for their county, that they could possibly go to Thailand. Hope you threw that
As a selling point.
Total selling point. It sounds like a great opportunity.
It really is.
Program. I wanted to talk just a minute more about early childhood. We've thrown it out on the table quite a bit, but I think it is like the economic development activities. There's a lot of work going on in both valleys and a lot of churning over in the Eagle River Valley side. There are several different groups that are trying to get, I think, coordinated and move forward, but trying to figure out, do we need a big child care center? If we did, where would we put it? Or do we need smaller ones? How are we going to pay for it? How do we subsidize in an ongoing manner? We don't have any county tax funds. The towns don't have any tax funds to do that sort of thing, figuring out what the need is. Over here is the Cradle to Career initiative that we've been watching very closely and trying to participate in as we can. So I think that would be a great ongoing priority for us to share resources, ideas.
And we forgot to mention that we have paid a research firm to do an affordability and accessibility study on child care in both the Roaring Fork and the Eagle River valleys. And so hopefully we'll have some data to share in the next couple of months, which can maybe, help drive some of our decision making, some of our planning.
And elderly care is on the other end of that spectrum, but we face very similar pressures in the coming years with demographics and people choosing to age in place and needing more services and becoming a bigger percentage of the population. We just saw today that it's going to grow from 9% now to about 16% in 15 years or so. So that's going to
And we'll be in
all
there.
of us.
We'll be in there.
We'll be lined up at the door waiting to get in.
Well, and I think the common thread between the early childhood and the senior issue is the affordable housing issue. I mean, I think it's when we dismantled the trailer park, for lack of a better phrase, you really see that there is no way to have a quality of life or education or any kind of subsistence survival when you don't have housing. You cannot be living under a trailer with your child and think that that's going to work. So I think we just need to bring all these up together. I mean, they're all so connected, the transportation, the housing, and the early childhood and senior business. But you got to have a place to live, roof over your head. I think it's pretty well known that if you don't have those basic, you don't really care about going to college. It's just not going to be something you talk about.
Jackie, along those lines, we just finished an envisioning process for the Roaring Fork School District for their facilities master plan, and affordable housing came up on everybody's list because you can't attract good teachers in an expensive valley and maintain them. But that's something that the school will be talking to all of us about as they go forward with their plans as well.
Well, and it's the types of housing too that we got to look at is, you know, making sure that we're providing different types of housing. And, you know, I look in the 3 Mile planning area and, you know, our Latino community is really focused on more of the trailer park areas. And then, you know, what happened when we moved them out of there, they went to other of those. And we've got to figure that out and make sure that, you know, there's different types in it. It's not just an apartment just to try to snuff them all in. It's got to be different types of housing that we really look at together.
So I know we're all going to break bread together. I'm not sure we have enough bread for everybody in the house, but I know we have bread for these guys. But I wondered if you had closing remarks, Kathy, that you wanted to make.
I do. I wrote down some action steps that have come up, and just to see if we're in agreement with that. And one is to take Jeannie's suggestion that we all go back and do some homework, look at the 2 strategic priorities, figure out what we think makes most sense. And then we ask Mike and our new county manager, along with whatever staff you guys want to pull in, to take and mold that into a longer planning session, figure out how to facilitate that, pull us back together. If we could commit to a few hours together to come up with 2 or 3 goals that we want to work on for this next year, come out of that with action steps and timelines for each of those priorities. Does that sound like a way to move
steps and
forward?
timelines.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I mean, it's one of those things where it would be great if there's a way that we could include Pickens County into this, because you look at that 3 Mile area and,
That'd be great.
you know.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Only
It's
if they
just-
use the same kind of colors. It's not going to work if it's not like in the
Does
colors.
Pickens
You know what?
poster look like that?
Since I work for Pickens County, I know our strategic plan
No
has
flashing.
very similar colors. We use circles.
Oh, no.
That's what we can deal with circles.
But I think the circles and the squares can go together.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense to me, just because
If
we
we really
really,
talk about
half of
this.
our town is in Pitkin.
And we already have connections like this between the 2 counties.
Right, and the counties already know each other and are connected and have projects
And housing.
together. It makes
What
really
do you
a
think,
lot of
George?
sense.
Not to put you
Well, I
on
think
the
it's
spot.
great. I think we just continue the partnerships in all these areas because, as you say, the people who live here, they don't know what side of the line they're on usually until they pay their taxes, but they still want and expect the level of services that we all provide.
I said to Mike today when we were just chatting about this, you don't really know where the lines are until you get elected because you don't care. You know,
Right.
you want service to be delivered in a decent manner and be affordable, and that's all you care.
Right.
So this is awesome.
So Mike, you
Yay.
think you can talk your buddy John Peacock into jumping in here with us?
Anyway,
He owes you a trip to Thailand.
That's right.
he owes one of us a trip to Thailand.
Well, right. Closing remarks from anyone else?
The only thing that I would add, and it's a term that we're trying to change in the profession, is that affordable housing really needs to be changed to affordable living. There's 2 components of any family's costs, and it's housing and transportation. And you can drive to buy, but you tend to then increase your transportation costs. So if you just looked at metropolitan areas, it's either high transportation costs that you're paying for and low cost of housing, or high cost of housing and low transportation. When you think about where do you, and I think it was Jill that says, where do you put the early childhood education center? So you hear a lot of talk about transit-oriented development. And it's about where do you put childcare so that people can get to it easily. using transit and building things close to transit and getting people to think about how do you create affordable living for people, because that's really what you're attempting to do. It's not just the housing component, but it's also the transportation. We could build lots of housing in Silton Rifle, but the transportation cost would be really high, and over time, wouldn't it be better to try, if you're trying to hit the environmental stewardship and sustainable communities and resiliency, to create a system of affordable living so that people can afford to live here. Childcare is close, transit's easy to access, and their housing is close.
Great. So, is anybody interested in barbecue, dinner? If so, is there a motion to adjourn? Can we do that? Did we
Yes.
ever open? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Let's just pretend like we're all one big.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Yay. We voted together. How illegal!
Thanks for keeping me on the